What could you leave behind? Your hobbies? Your ambitions? Your social status? Your comfort? Your certainty? Your me time? Everything you've planned? Everything you've known? What could you leave behind?
The path forward involves our journeys to follow Christ. But in parallel fashion, we're going to be reliving the historical journey of Lewis and Clark and their Corps of Discovery, which set out in the year 1804 to discover, they had to discover this water route to the Pacific Ocean. Okay? Let's just say things did not go as they expected, and they had to change. I am grateful to an author by the name of Todd Bolzinger. I give him a nod for writing a great book. He is the vice president, or at least at the time of the writing of the book, vice president and chief of leadership formation at Fuller Theological Seminary. And in his book entitled Canoeing the Mountains, Christian Leadership in Uncharted Territory, he is the one who's going to open up for us this story of Lewis and Clark, and I will be referring to those passages throughout this series. So thank you, Mr. Bolzinger, for all of that you have provided. On the book jacket itself, it states it quite clearly, and I thought this was a good summary of where we're going. I quote, "The culture is changing, and the world is changing rapidly, and churches are facing change on an unprecedented scale. But the church is also at an exciting crossroads. We are entering a new day, new terrain, and a new adventure. We are not alone. The Spirit of God goes with us. The mission of Christ will not fail, and the steps are going to be demanding, and more than anything, this moment requires those of us in positions of authority, and even most of us who are not, to embrace this adventure or die mindset. Find the courage and develop the capacity for a new day, which is upon us. We are heading into uncharted territory and are given the charge to lead a mission where the future is nothing like the past." End of quote. Are you ready? Let's begin. Lewis and a small scouting party, it seems, had gone ahead of the rest of the Corps of Discovery to try to make contact with the Shoshone tribe. They had followed a small trail up this creek, and now they were at the headwaters themselves. And this little spring was the source, you see, of the mighty Missouri River, which they have been traversing all along here to get to this point. This was taking them further and further west to this point, and this water would flow all the way, you see, all the way through, and then on down to the Gulf of Mexico eventually. They had found what no person of European descent had discovered before them. and the most challenging obstacle on their journey from what was then the United States, at least the eastern part of it, to the Pacific Ocean. They thought, oh, the worst of it's behind us. We've been going upstream all this time. Oh, at least that's what they thought, that the worst was behind them. You see, here's what happened, that for over 300 years, explorers of at least 4 sovereign nations had been looking for a water route that would connect the Pacific to the Mississippi, and everyone just knew. They just knew it was out there somewhere. It was broadly believed, a persistent assumption that this is the way the world was arranged. This is the way things are supposed to be. This assumption not only inspired Lewis and Clark's journey, but it fueled actually this frenetic race for profits and power were behind this as well. President Thomas Jefferson had indeed commissioned Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery for just this moment, declaring that they should find the cherished water route that everyone believed existed and thus would ensure the young nation's prosperity. Finding the water route had been the key to national sovereignty and financial stability. For example, the French, who had been in this New World for centuries, and then there's the British, who were mostly now in Canada, and then there was the Spanish, who were looking for it, who controlled the southwestern corner of the continent, and the Americans, who had recently purchased the Louisiana Territory from Napoleon Bonaparte. So whoever discovered and made claim to the water route would own the trade route and control, you hear those words carefully, I trust, own and control the resources of this great continent. And that's how they looked at things back then. This discovery was deemed so vital to national interests that it has been recorded that Spain actually sent at least 2 warring parties to intercept and, let's just say, make sure the Corps of Discovery made no progress. So for Meriwether Lewis, slaking his thirst from that little stream meant that he thinks he's at the top of the ridge here. He's about to realize the dream of centuries of pioneers, and he's going to fulfill the ambitions, and not only of himself, but of his president, and he's going to enter into the pantheon of explorers, and his name and his corps would be remembered as the discoverers of the highly prized Northwest Passage. Lewis believed that he just had to walk up this remaining little hill, look down a gentle slope that would take him and his men, half a day to cross with their canoes on their backs? And then they would see the sister river flowing away from them off to the west. And after 15 months of going upstream, they looked forward to letting the current just swiftly whisk them onward ever more towards the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, they're about to crest the hill, find the stream, coast to the finish line. They could not have been more disappointed. What Lewis actually discovered was that 300 years of experts had been completely and utterly wrong. In front of him was not a gentle slope to just navigate easily another river running to the Pacific Ocean from these mountains, the Rocky Mountains. No, for stretching out for miles and miles as far as they could see was one peak after another. I mean, when warned about mountains, they simply envisioned, maybe slightly rounded, topped bluffs like the Appalachian Mountains that they knew out east. Now, one of the sergeants on the trip recorded, and I quote in his diary, "These were the most terrible mountains I ever beheld." And that at that moment, everything that Meriwether Lewis assumed about his journey stopped and changed. He was planning to move forward. He was planning on exploring, actually, the New World by boat, of course. He was a river explorer. They planned on rowing. They hired out and outfitted themselves for that kind of challenge. They thought the hardest part was behind them, but in truth, everything they had accomplished was only a prelude for what was still in front of them. Lewis and Clark and the Corps of Discovery were about to go off the map into uncharted territory. Churches today are being described in similar ways. Lewis and Clark would have to change their plans, give up expectations, even reframe their entire mission. What lay before them was, nothing like what was behind them. And so there were, in their eyes, there's no experts to rely on. There are no maps of this area to rely on, no best practices to tell them what to do next, no sure guides to lead them safely and successfully as far as they knew. The true adventure, the real discovery, was just beginning, and it all began with getting out of their boats and leaving the boats behind. Yeah, Lewis and Clark's pivotal decision point kind of reminds me of a similar decision points which we read about in our Bibles. One such time was at the beginning of Jesus' public ministry when he was finding those who would go with him, who would be one of his 12 disciples. Okay, it's recorded that they too literally had to get out of their boats to follow him. Here's what is recorded in the Gospel according to Matthew, the 4th chapter, verses 18 to 22. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. And they were casting their nets into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." And at once they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, they saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father Zebedee, preparing their nets. And Jesus called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Gosh, leaving your boat sounds so easy in the Bible, doesn't it? I mean, Jesus calls you to follow, to go with him, to do something new for him. And the good disciples back then simply drop everything and without a second thought, hop out of their boats, leave the familiar behind, change their daily routine, disrupt their usual way of doing things, risk their comfort and their safety, and they simply start following. Really? I mean, 1 minute you're casting nets, and the very next minute you're tossing them aside and jumping out of the boat? Really? I mean, 1 minute your sons are working side by side with you in the family business, and the very next minute they're saying goodbye, Dad, and they're jumping out of the boat? Really? Or maybe in modern terms, it's like 1 minute you're working away in your office, and the next minute you're told your job has been automated, or that the company is downsizing, and you're handed the pink slip and a packing box for your desk supplies, and it's time to get out of your boat and find a new job in maybe a whole new field. Or 1 minute your days are rolling along as usual, and the next minute you're told you have cancer. It's time to get out of your boat and approach life differently each day. Or ever so recently, 1 minute you're sitting in your favorite pew at church, taking in a wonderful Lenten message. You're preparing yourself for Holy Week and Easter, and the next minute something called COVID has closed your church doors for an indefinite amount of time and changed the church you knew forever. Wow, it's time to get out of your boat. Get out of your boat and find different and new ways to nurture your spirituality and how to also be Christ's church in the world. Of all the numerous blogs and reports and forecasts and surveys on the future of the church that I read during the pandemic time, not one of them was saying, oh, just hang on, all things are going to go back to the way they were. But time keeps changing things, even without a pandemic in our midst. For my personal journey of, it's been 64 years of walking on this earth, there are things that have changed, and I lament how they aren't anymore. I just wonder. I wonder about things like, whatever happened to those spiritual retreats? They were so pivotal to my faith journey, and they've affected so many people in such powerful, positive ways. Where are they? Are they even being offered anymore? Or I remember when our kids were really little. I remember we would go off to family camp all the time, and it was at this great camp out on and you go out on the point, and the kids would run around with everybody, and everyone felt safe, and you're all there for the whole Labor Day weekend, and out on the point was a place to worship, and that's where our little precious little baby was baptized. Whatever happened to that camp? Where did it go? Where do people find such significant moments these days? I did a lot of things with youth. I keep wondering whatever happened to Sunshine Music Festival. It used to be out in Wilmer every summer. Man, they had Christian rock concerts going on and on and on, and it was great. I don't even know. I don't think they have gone on for 10 years or so. What happened to them? Let alone this pandemic makes me wonder, how in the world are you supposed to ever hold the hand of somebody when all you've got is a screen in front of you? It's hard. It keeps changing. Things are different. Why didn't things just stay the same? More importantly, why can't we go back? I mentioned Aldersgate United Methodist at the beginning of this time together. I mean, we can only begin to imagine what that faith community is going through right now. I look forward to talking to them and hearing their stories and knowing what that's like for them. But I do know that 3 years ago, they probably could see that they had reached the end of their stream, like Lewis did. And bless their souls, though, they got out of their boats and they didn't give up. They got out of their boat, literally got up and got out of their church building and began exploring new ways, new pathways forward in order to keep being faithful disciples of Jesus Christ in the world today. I mean, I want the rest of us to imagine that. Just imagine 1 minute you are sitting in your bright, comfortable, beautiful sanctuary, and the next you find yourselves almost overnight and you don't have a sanctuary. You are your spiritual home is gone. You are homeless in a sense. I admire that they have taken steps forward. We'll see how their story unfolds. I don't know about you, but leaving one's boat behind is far from easy. Far from easy. I don't care how it sounds in the Bible, it is not easy. It doesn't matter if it's a mountain range which is standing in your way, if it's a pandemic which has overtaken the world, or if it is Jesus who is calling you. Here, right here, is where faith is tested. Right here is where we either give up or press forward. Right here is where we either say, well, let's turn around and go back and we'll tell the president and our supreme leader, whoever that might be, you might say that I'm sorry, we failed, we couldn't find the route, we couldn't go on. Or do you keep pressing forward? See, because right now I think is Christianity's moment of truth. Now is the time to keep pressing forward. Right now it is Aldersgate's moment of truth, of course, and they are choosing to keep pressing forward. And I dare say now it is time that we too are facing our moments of truth. We too, either personally or collectively as a church, need to keep pressing forward. The waterway has become no water. Now it is a pathway, if it's that at all. Will we get out of our boat to venture forward? The familiar has given way to the unknown. Will we get out of our boat to continue our journey with Christ? What we've learned up to this point through our schools and our seminaries and through all of our experiences as being church, from mentors and leaders and people who've guided us, all of our common sense, we're going to need every bit of that. But we're going to have to adapt to whatever is now coming before us. And that may mean we have to get out of our boats. No, it is not easy. It is not as easy as it sounds, but it is the step that we must take to keep moving forward for Christ, for others, for ourselves. Lewis and Clark, by the way, did reach the Pacific Ocean, just not the way they expected it originally. Jesus is calling. Friends, now is the time to what? To get out of our boats. Amen.